Welcome back. All right, we're going to dive into a new series for you here of the top 20 financial tips from 20 years. That's about how long I've been doing financial planning work. And so I thought it'd be helpful kind of to take a lot of the different things that I've looked at over the years and kind of distill it down for you into the top 20. And of course, there's probably a lot more than that. In fact, I saw a book the other day somebody had written and it was 400 some odd tips. I'm like, wow, I don't have that kind of time. That's a lot of work. So I'm going to give you 20 and we'll just run through them and get to all of them, but just touch on each one and tell you why each of them is an important thing to think about. Tip number 1, no surprise here, establish and build an emergency fund for what can go wrong. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong, whether you're in retirement, approaching retirement, or very far from it. So I love the idea of having cash on hand. Cash is king because if you need a lot of cash or there's an emergency, if you don't have the cash, then getting it usually requires some sort of sacrifice or negative outcome. So you might have to borrow at unfavorable terms, or you might have to liquidate an investment position at maybe an inopportune time. There could be a variety of things. You might incur a penalty getting out of something that you planned on keeping a long time. So whenever you are looking at your situation, and it's tip number 1, because even before you get into paying off debt or you get into having the proper insurances, you've got to have cash. And far too many financial people, I'll call them people, I'm not sure that they're all advisors, but too many financial people will try to put every nickel somebody's got into investment so they can be compensated for it. And of course, that's not right. That's not putting the client's interests first. So the right way to build a financial plan always starts with having enough cash. Well, how much cash? Well, it varies by person, but there's a couple ways to look at it. Number 1, you can take a percentage of your overall total assets and say that's going to be my emergency fund, and you could say 5% would be a starting point. Another way to do it would be to look at what your expenses are, maybe for 3 to 6 months, add in maybe some deductibles on some of your major insurances, add those things up, and that would give you an idea of what are maybe an adequate cash reserve. So gotta have cash, gotta have cash, gotta have cash. I can't emphasize that enough, even if I say it 3 times. Now, number 2, insurances. Your insurances will need to adjust as you go through life. The insurance you need when you are 20 as a college student renting an apartment is very different than the insurance you need when you are perhaps 60 and you have a home and you have other responsibilities and you might need a long-term care policy. You might want life insurance for a particular purpose. You might need an annuity for income or to supplement. So your insurance needs change a lot. So the goal is to maintain the right type of insurance for where you are, your stage of life. And it's more about your stage of life, not necessarily your age. Two 40-year-olds or two 50-year-olds may have very different insurance needs based on their particular circumstances. Number 3, develop a plan for debt. Now notice that cash and insurances came before paying off debt. If you don't have any health insurance, but you're focused on paying off your debt, and then you need insurance, well, guess what? You're going to be back in debt again. So a key thing about these tips is you've got to do them in the right order. So number 3, debt. All right, you've got your cash, you've got your insurances, you're going to start working your way through debt. What do you pay off first? Well, I like the idea of course, paying all your minimum payments. You don't want to be missing payments, so pay all your minimum payments on everything that you owe. And then start with the highest interest rate debt and put all your extra cash there to pay it down first. Once you pay it down, then you take what you were putting on that debt and transfer it to the next highest debt item you have. So it would be the next lower from the most expensive to the cheapest in terms of the interest rate being charged. So you work your way down, and as you go from debt to debt, and hopefully there's not that many, but as you go through that, you take what you were paying extra and it kind of starts to snowball until you pay off all the debt. Now, debt is number 3 on my list, and it comes before investing. How about that? Before you invest, and I've told people coming in to see me, I don't want you to invest money with me until you've paid off this debt. And people look at me like I'm crazy. What, oh, you don't want to invest my money? Well, sure, I want to invest your money, but I want you to pay things off that could get in the way of a good, sound financial plan. Now, housing debt is a little different. Housing debt can be deductible depending on your circumstances. It depends on a lot of factors, how long you plan to stay in your home, but it's real easy to work through paying off auto and credit card debt, student loans, all those types of things that generally are not deductible. Home debt, different animal. You have to look at your situation. You may not want to pay it off, or you might want to refinance it either with a regular mortgage or maybe a reverse mortgage. So those are some considerations. Number 4 is looking at specifically at the home debt, which we just talked about. So you have to work through that one really individually. Number 5, reevaluate your investments as you approach retirement. Well, what if I'm a long way from retirement? Why do I need to be thinking about the stability of my investments? Well, you don't. If you're 25 years old, you're in your first job, you're saving money in your 401k, you're saving and you're putting this money away, and retirement's out there as a kind of a mirage out on the desert in your mind, well, then you don't need to be really concerned about stability. You want to be in the most important thing for you to be doing is to be putting as much away as you can systematically. And so you want to be on the more growth side of things. You don't want to be reckless by any means. You don't want to just roll the dice haphazardly, but you certainly want to be more growth oriented because it could be a very long time before you need that money. Now, I always caveat that statement by saying if you can't sleep, then it's counterproductive. But with the proper education and thinking it through, then you can look at the investing really to be more growth oriented when you're in your younger years. Now, as you get closer to retirement and move into retirement, we really need to think about the stability of our investments because we can't afford to wait for a recovery that might take 5 or 10 years if we go through another major market meltdown. 2008 was the latest or biggest, most recent market drop of 38% for the broad market, stock market indices. How long did it take? It took a while for it to build back. Before that, we had 2000 through 2002 where the market was off almost 50% over that 3-year period. If you're retiring in 1999, and you might be partying like it's 1999, but when the market fell apart in 2000 and then proceeded to fall further and then further in 2001 and 2002, what if you had just retired? Bad. So you want to make sure that you've got your money positioned for drawing against it when you retire, and you can't afford to wait for the money to come back. And that's really the last tip I'll cover right now is being able to draw from stable sources when it's time to get your income. If you follow the tips, if you think about them, you can plan stronger.